Welcome to Community Talk, a public affairs presentation of the MSA United Way and Super Talk 1270. Now your host, Jenna Gullo.
Good morning, Bismarck, Mandan, and all of North Dakota. We're going to be talking today about issues that affect us here in Bismarck, Mandan, and throughout North Dakota. It's an issue that often gets ignored, and as United Way, we really feel that it's important to bring it to the forefront of many people's minds. It's that of the Native American population and the disparities that exist. And we have two very special guests with us today who are proof that, you can be successful, you can be an advocate, you can really change lives and help our fellow North Dakotans. With me today for the next hour, we have what I refer to as a power couple. We have Lorraine Davis, who is the founder and executive director of the Bismarck Mandan Native American Development Center, and her husband, Scott Davis, who is the executive director of the Indian Affairs Commission. So thank you both for being with me this morning.
Pleasure being here with you, Jenna, today. Thank you.
And so tell me a little bit about, where you each grew up and tell me a little bit about your life story here.
I grew up in South Dakota. I'm from the Siston-Wahpeton Reservation, and I grew up actually in a little town called Wilmot, South Dakota. And we came from California when I was 8 years old, so there was a culture shock in that, and I can always remember feeling that I was different when I went to the school at Wilmot, South Dakota, a little farmer rural town. And it was always a feeling of that I wasn't present, that they didn't see me, that kind of a feeling.
And Lorraine, how many other Native Americans were attending that school at the time?
I would say throughout the whole school, K through 12, it was a very small school. So I would say there had probably been about 20 altogether throughout the whole school. So, it was very, we tried very hard to fit in, and I tried as hard as I could. But the main point was that I was kind of screaming inside to be connected to the Native American people. And so in doing that and expressing that urge to go there, to my mother, who was not supportive of that at first until she's seen how important it was to me and how unhappy I was because the cultural aspect wasn't there. And so she allowed me to go to the tribal school, which was fairly new at the time, and we actually moved to the reservation for my high school years. And so at that time, I felt, I did feel like I fit in. I felt embraced. I felt happy. It sure fulfilled a need, an emotional and social need that I had.
And at that time, Lorraine, did your living standards change? Did your housing, what was that substandard, or was it, the same as when you weren't living on the reservation?
Well, when I lived on the reservation, my mother was living in tribal housing. We moved into tribal housing. And so all the way up until I graduated high school and moved on further and went out on my own. And when I did that, I had a baby when I was 20 years old. So at that time is when life really began to become reality for me, and the hard struggles began at that time. So the first thing is college was always, ingrained into me from my mother because she didn't go. And so it was never something that I really saw was done. So it didn't come natural, but I did pursue that after high school, not successfully finishing.
But interesting, even as a single parent, you still pursued a college degree.
Well, not to say not at that time. at 18 years old, I wasn't quite ready, so I did go back to the reservation, not fulfilling even the first year of college.
Interesting.
I wasn't mentally and maybe even mature enough. I was really worried about finances. I didn't have those capabilities. I wasn't confident in that, so I was real worried about not making it, surviving.
Absolutely. And I find I do foster care, so I see that very frequently in a lot of the kids that come into my home. But what's interesting about what you say is that it's your mother that instilled in you the value of education. And we're going to be talking more about the power of people coming together and providing that leadership and mentorship in young people's lives. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Welcome back. My name is Jenna Gullo. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Slope Area-Wide United Way. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are discussing many of the issues plaguing our Native American population in North Dakota. But we're not just talking about the issues. We're going to be addressing some of the solutions and ways that you personally can get involved. We hope that you're moved today to do something to help our fellow North Dakotans, help people living in the Bismarck-Mandan community to be successful. When we help one person, we're helping ourselves, and we're helping to preserve the good quality of life that we all cherish in North Dakota. With me today, we have Lorraine Davis, founder and executive director of the Bismarck-Mandan Native American Development Center, and her husband, Scott Davis, the executive director of the North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission. Thank you both for being here with me this hour.
Sure, absolutely.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. I wish we had more than an hour because we keep talking before the show and on the breaks, and I keep thinking, gosh, we should save that for on air. You're both so darn knowledgeable and have such wonderful real-life experiences, and you're doing so much to help fellow Native Americans in North Dakota. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about your background. I know that you were appointed, I remember, in April of 2009 by then Governor John Hoeven. So congratulations, and tell us a little bit about, your background in North Dakota.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jenna, for allowing us some time today. My journey really began, obviously with my family, growing up on and off the reservation throughout our life. My father, Dr. Jim Davis, had education background, from teaching to coaching to being an administrator now to being a tribal college president. So I was very, very fortunate to have a father that who really instilled in me the value of education and hard work. My mother, a lifelong, just retired a month ago from the Indian Health Service in the dental field. She was a lifelong dental assistant, so she served thousands and thousands of people, and you times that by the teeth. I'm sure she's seen there's probably millions of teeth that she's been worked on over her career. But so I was very, very fortunate of having parents like that growing up who really, again, instilled hard work ethic in me, education, chores, values, prayer, and so again, pretty lucky. But we lived, through my mom and dad's career, we lived in various states, Montana, Minnesota, North Dakota, and had a lot of different jobs and things. So I was always on and off the reservation. So it really taught me. And then my dad, education, he got his education out of Penn State in Pennsylvania.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
that's fascinating, Scott. Yeah. So I have to ask, what do you think was the difference for your parents?
It was an investment. I think the growing up, I just lost my grandmother over the weekend. So the past few days.
So sorry.
Thank you. Well, the past few days I've been really talking with my aunts and uncles, and they always said my grandma, who only went up to I think the 10th grade because of the farm and things. Education. So they knew that education was the key, and so going off. And it was a scary moment. I remember back then where a lot of my grandparents and my aunts and uncles were like, "What's out in Pennsylvania? That's no one's ever been there. It's like falling off the face of the earth." But it was a lot of courage, a lot of risk, I think, between my mom and father. And growing up, we were poor. I always remember that. I don't remember being poor, feeling poor. But looking back now as an adult, knowing that I realized that we were very poor because we always had. But my mom and dad never made us feel like we were poor because we always had things. You know, we always had food on our table. We always had, you know, a nice place to live. But I know financially we weren't. We were just making it by. So, and that's kind of how, you know, my life has evolved. And then moving here to Bismarck throughout my career, you know, after college, you know, being single and working